Good day, good evening, good night.
Hello.
Hello. Janina, you totally fail as a DJ. I'm just putting it out there.
Horrible, horrible.
But anyway, you know what? Maybe that would keep the episode up on YouTube because last time we tried out Whitney Houston, that YouTube was just like, no.
Listen, no one cares about Gwen Stefani. We're good.
Anyway, good evening, and welcome to the second podcast for the week, podcast 146. And this title of this episode is "Our phones are fully charged, but we see no Nole messages." So,
I don't even know it.
but before I go any further, let me introduce my co-hostesses with the mostesses. We have Andre from Solely Tennis Travel. How are you doing?
I am traveling in WeHo right now, so doing very well.
Ooh, if you see any sexy gays,
What's a WeHo?
It's West Hollywood, boo.
far in Ohio. See what I'm talking about?
I know I'm in West Hollywood because right across the street from me is the Out of Closet Goodwill store. You know that?
There's one in Brooklyn.
Yeah, does every gay neighborhood have an out of the closet like thrift store?
And whenever I go in there, they never have shit I like, and then people say, "Oh my god, I found this amazing thing at Out of the Closet." Just like I never see those shit when I'm in Out of the Closet.
Wow.
I never do. So,
I don't think we have those where I live.
Y'all don't really have gay people. That's the problem. Y'all don't like them over in Ohio. So.
Or they have them, but they hide them away.
Yeah, y'all burn that shit down.
They might still be in the closet.
They might just be. So,
oh fuck,
Andre, you're outside, but we can hear you clearly.
I know. That's because I'm standing still. Magical that I am.
You're not driving home, are you?
No, can I tell you what these people have done, y'all? They have interrupted my fabulous session of having a wonderful afternoon lunch. Because guess what? I was working since 6 a.m. this morning.
I'm sorry. Who is we people? It can be us people. I know.
Right?
I mean, scheduling 2 podcasts a week. What do you think we are?
This is number 2 of 4.
Oh shoot!
No, I'm kidding.
You need to take that back. Take that back. You're not gonna have Maya and other fans up here crawling in my butt. Chris be up in my butt talking about, we want podcasts pluralized. No.
Well, listen, I hope everyone is preparing themselves for Miami SIZZLE then.
Yes, we want lists. You bet your numbers, and you better be ready to defend your mans. Okay.
Or
Every
women.
single one of them.
No, Miami
it's always men. It's always men.
It's not about the women.
Maybe we should switch it up this year.
No, that's okay. We do Roma. Roma is always good to the ladies, so
It's fine.
But you know what? March is the month. You have the Women's Month, so you never know.
Yeah,
no, stop changing things. We don't like change. Go on.
Okay, all right. Republican, all right.
Oh my gosh.
And we have Janina in Foreign, Ohio. How are you doing?
I'm good, and I just found out that there is an Out of the Closet in Columbus. So there.
Find it.
You should have found someone's mansion in Columbus, Ohio.
It's probably like right on the Ohio State campus, but
okay. And of course, the homosexual of the podcast who is not in the closet. So, ladies,
is that a thing that's happening?
Apparently.
Fabulous. All right, I get you. Thank you for taking the metaphor.
What were you having for lunch,
Andre?
What were you having for lunch, Andre? Let us just figure out.
Are you sober? I'm totally sober because guess what I had for lunch? I had oysters, which was yummy, and then
get it tonight.
And you know how they always have poutine, but I don't always love poutine, which is basically gravy on top of fries. But this time they had lobster poutine, and it was very, very good.
I had lobster for dinner too.
Look at you for dinner, though. Look at you being all fancy.
I made lobster shrimp pasta, and it was delicious.
Look at you. But guess who? So I sat down, and right across from me, and I was trying to be all cagey and not really pay attention, was Jeff Goldblum. He looks just as good in person.
Mhm.
He was cozying. He was cozying up. No, I'm just saying he was cozying up with a lovely lady.
It was probably
And
his wife. His wife
I
used to be a
know.
rhythmic gymnast, so she probably has a rocking body.
Do you know what though? She was well preserved, and I will say
Kate.
that nobody should worry about whether they can get with Jeff Goldblum. So let's move on.
Okay.
Take that however you will.
Okay.
Janina, I don't know I don't know what Jeff Blueberg is doing right now, but I bet you he's snatching his weight because Andreen just came for his edges. Just saying. Just saying.
I think I was paying both of them a compliment in the nicest way, though. But anyway.
But speaking of edges, can we just, before we go any further, can we just say a word of amazement that Serena got her edges back? I'm telling you.
You wanted to talk about that.
I thought that was impossible, but listen to me. She got that shit brushed down. I mean, like, it is legit. I mean, like,
it's because someone talked to her about her daughter, I'm sure.
I think it's because she got money, because sometimes when those edges were that snatched.
She has always had money for a long, long time. That is not the reason.
Oh, okay.
Stop.
Maybe Olivia introduced, not Olivia, Alexis. Is that the baby's name?
Olympia.
Olympia. Thank you. But she's a junior, right? So we can say Alex.
She's Olympia Alexis.
Oh, right. So I know I didn't make that up. Olympia got her edges. Serena decided, let's do a mama-daughter thing. Let's do edges together.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm excited about that.
You know, children are always improve parents.
True. And while we're out here, can we just say a word to help Auntie Venus? Because, girl, V, you know I love you, girl, but
leave Venus alone. Leave Venus alone.
She's a great aunt, and
I love Venus.
You're right. Absolutely right. And I love the fact that Venus isn't paying any mind to the Petra people while they're trying to come for her. She's like, bitch. Petra will take that L and move on along. She'll be all right. She will be all right.
Always.
So, ladies, we decided to dedicate this second podcast for the week so that we can discuss the issues that are surrounding tennis. We have quite a few. I don't know where we want to start. Since this is the month of the women, I'm going to let you ladies decide. AKA, that's just me copping out from doing the real hard work.
Whatever.
So,
whatever.
Let's start with the latest and greatest. Maybe we start with the infamous Florida Sentinel article about our number one, Osaka.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I guess we can.
Yeah, because let's just do it quick and dirty and get her out of the way.
Yeah, let's just sum it up by saying, well, I think we have now reached a point where Osaka is black.
Not yet. No,
I think it is. I think we're at that point.
Even crossed my mind.
I think we're at that point.
No.
Okay, elaborate. Tell.
You sure? Tell.
Yeah.
Okay. So quite a couple days ago, not a couple days ago, a week or 2 weeks ago, she did an article. Let me make sure I got this woman's name right. She writes for the undefeated Soraya Nadia McDonald. She and Osaka explained, that yes, she's happy for the fans, but she was aware that many of these fans are not many. Some of these fans are only here because they're anti-Serena, and she's not about that life. It's not fair, and she wanted to point out to people, that she's here because of Serena. Serena is her idol, and I guess she paid to a lot of that bullshit. I was going to say bullsensical. I made up a Rafa. It's almost I'm being Rafa. I make up a word, but
that's okay. We can make up words here too.
But put paid on the bullshit. Where a lot of people were creating this always whenever she is there. They always reference the Serena incident, and as we pointed out here, Serena didn't do this girl anything, and there's no reason for people to, in efforts of praising her, pull Serena down or pull Serena into the conversation. And not too long afterwards, because the story regarding the coaching situation, the unpaid coaching situation, would have been around for a long time. That requires some level of investigation, and it would have been known because these people seem to be grumbling. They filed a lawsuit, etc., etc. This didn't just happen 1 week ago, But I think someone was sitting on the story, and then all of a sudden, boom, the story is out here, and everyone is treating Osaka like the shit. She's no longer, there is no Courtney defenders. There, no one has come on to her rescue in regards to this situation. She's getting that black treatment.
Well, I don't think that there's any need to rescue. I mean, I'll be honest. I thought that the piece was, I think, fairly even-handed. I mean, I know people are like, oh, she's going to have to make a comment about it. But it sounds to me like, I'll be honest, the article is more of an indictment of the U.S. system of supporting or failing to support tennis athletes than anything else. Like, this is basically a story of a poor family who is mobile, extremely mobile, because they're always moving depending on what their circumstances are like, and they establish relationships with people who come to see Osaka and her sister and say, hey, these kids have talent, I want to participate, I want to help grow this. We've already seen examples of this, and I didn't find that anyone in the article, except for the one person who's suing them, who happens to be Haitian, but that's just because he knows the deal. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anyone else who seem to want anything more than a kind of acknowledgement that they participated in her development, right? They seem to just be willing to say, listen, right? Like, acknowledge that we participated, that she didn't just birth from zero to nothing, right? And to ask for that kind of acknowledgement. And I actually think that seems to me probably the most egregious pattern, is the sort of failure to acknowledge other people's participation in making Osaka a great player, which I think we've seen with Sasha too. Is like, oh, well, thanks, it's been real, bye. I mean, so I think what's noteworthy about the article, I will say, is that it shows a pattern. When people were confused about why she would reject Sasha after having had a good relationship with him, I think all the article suggests is that the family has a history.
This is their MO.
A history of cheating on coaches?
No, or not necessarily cheating on them, but has a history of being somewhat transactional. Like, thanks, you've got us here. Bye.
Bye.
Let's, you know what I mean? Bye. Move on.
No maintaining up relationships or goodwill.
Yeah, that
they burn bridges.
You know what? I'm fine with that.
Of course you would be, Janine.
Which part of it are you fine with? I mean, I'm not invested either way. Yeah.
The part where people say, you got us here, thank you, goodbye, I'm moving on. I don't want to be stagnant. It's fine. No, that's fine. Probably a good thing.
I'm fine with it, but apparently, I mean, I guess tennis is, people always like get down. But I mean, I was off your opinion too, Andrine, but I think for me, what I found in this story was that I don't ever see these stories about other players. You know, where, not to say, but maybe it might be a case where other players don't do this, but I don't see where, but again, very few players become number one, you know, and have a mediatic rights, particularly in today's tennis landscape, seeing that tennis was invented in 2011. But, you know, I don't see people writing these sort of stories about, you know, a Martina Hingis, a Monica Seles, or everyone clamoring to the acknowledgement from them. Oftentimes you would find these people acknowledge their path in their success. They go out and say that they were part of the program, even though they were never acknowledged by the particular athlete. But I did notice, when I read this article, I remember a similar article about the Williams sisters when that came out, and people were like, hold up, Richard is not the architect of these sisters good fortune, or I played a part in this, I played a part of this. And the Williams sisters never really acknowledged those minor players in their success, and they've always given credit to their parents. But part of the problem might be that the media are not often listening to these players, because Venus and Serena have always spoken about their parents being their coaches. And time and again, the narrative is never Austin did a street Austin like she's just, sitting in the box. They never acknowledge at all.
The question really is, you're right in the sense that this is another story that we've heard with the Williams sisters. But I think it's been fairly well documented that there are lots of unseen hands that played a part in the Williams sisters' rises at different points in time. Obviously, the guiding hand is their parents for sure, but
Right.
there have been people that they pull in as needed. That has always been there, right? I mean, maybe they don't get name checked, but that's a part of their history, isn't it?
Right, but I think there have been grumblings on those people part by saying they were never acknowledged.
Mm. So
That
are
they
you
felt
saying that no one ever acknowledges that, like, it's a trend that people just don't acknowledge, but for some reason the Williams sisters and Osaka are being called on it?
well, I'm not saying that this is totally the case. There might be a
Oh, that is
documented.
so what you're saying.
No, wait, hold on. Let me clarify. I'm saying that that crossed my mind that could be the case here, but I'm saying I don't think it might be particular to these sets of players. There might have been things out there with other players because people quickly pointed out the Georgie incident. I don't know if I call it incident, the Georgie situation, because as you pointed out, Andreen, in the beginning, you said that, you felt like the article was an indictment on the USTA or the US tennis system. And this is something that was also one of the things that I got from this. Like, why are we having a system where in order for people to participate in the sport and to get to the level where they need to get to, they have to be bogged down by these kind of like a system like this where they require so much money, so much investment and money that they cannot get. They have to basically practice their sport on credit or goodwill or largest of others. And that, I think, is a very problematic situation because you're going to end up, and we're asking ourselves how we end up in tennis being match fixing, et cetera, et cetera. It's opening up ourselves to those type of situations if we have a situation where people can't just participate in the sport without having a large sum of money.
Well, I mean, I will say that, interestingly enough, if you think about Francis Tiafoe's story, like the generosity of others is already built into that narrative, right? And I think in some ways that's probably why there's been more receptivity towards Francis than others who have tried to buck the system, is that I think that people perceive Francis as fully participating in the system, right? Fully acknowledging the generosity of his white donors, the people who have allowed him to be in, who take advantage, who allowed him to access the tennis, the tennis courts that were in their clubs and all of that. So remember, because I think you've always pushed back on that storyline, right? This whole notion
I find it is a notion that happened always when it comes to players of color, particularly black players, because tennis isn't filled with the tennis ATP and WTA. It's not filled with rich people. They're not our rich kids. So they all have been struggling, come from middle class or lower class family, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, particularly when they come from the South American thing, one of the reasons why they're able to participate more is because even Novak was talking about, like, oh my God, I was playing in swimming pools and all this kind of stuff. It's because they oftentimes have a national tennis academy, which is able to filter out and pull talent in, and then players, like former pro players, getting connection and help these people move on to the next level. But that doesn't seem to happen in the US. And it's always, I mean, and not even just in tennis, like in any arena where people of color, particularly black people, people of color, particularly black, Latino, native people, whenever they become involved in predominantly white sport, whiteness always want to be centered in the story. Always, always, always. Not even just in sport, like in the performing arts, etc.
Well, I was just going to say, isn't that every story though?
They always
want that the American story.
Well, I mean, they want their generosity to be acknowledged, right? They want to let you know that they have played a part in this person's ascendancy. And so I think on some level, I mean, I can understand the resistance to that, right? And it might play as unfair. But also, I think the system itself is unfair. And so I don't really ever hear Anna Ivanovic acknowledge some of the people who made her path clear.
That's what no one asks her to. No one. There are no stories out there about that. That's my point. That's why I said I think Osaka is turning to being black, because of all the Osaka story, people rarely ever reference her father. They never didn't.
But you know what? See, it's so weird because I think that that's both a wish on their part as well as playing into what generally happens. I think it's very useful for Osaka to be seen only with her mother.
Right.
I think it increases her the sense that she's actually Japanese. I think it plays with the narrative that people are super comfortable with, which is this like, you know, Japanese mom and her daughter.
Right.
I think the dad not being there at times can be strategic. So I don't ever want to believe that it's just about the sort of mainstream media rejecting him. I think there's a participation on both sides.
I do acknowledge that there is that, but I would say that in almost in many cases, in many ways, I don't know. There's it's very, I don't want to say sketchy, but there's been a very
you don't want to say it, but you did.
But I did. I mean,
Janina, wait. Let me ask, Janina, what did you think of the piece? I feel like Realz and I've been going. What did you think of it?
I just I'm like, I don't know, because I don't feel like I've ever made it a point to follow this piece of tennis as far as coaching. So the stories are only told, like Realz said, you know, not that many people become number one. So is this being talked about because she's number one? Or is it like, are you a little, you know, is she being called ungrateful in a backhanded way? I don't know. Like, I'm okay. Like I said, I'm okay with going from coach to coach to coach. And, you know, if you just feel like I've gotten what I need from you and it's time to move on. I mean, we hear many people say that it's always good to have fresh eyes. If that's the case, that's okay. As I'm sitting here listening to you guys discuss it, I'm like, gosh, you know what? It really kind of makes sense that they're calling her out because she's a woman of color. Because I don't feel like we see that with other players. Not, and like, you know, doesn't mean it's not happening with the way that they're progressing through their careers, but I don't feel like it's talked about. And I feel like we do hear a whole lot about the people who feel like they have gone unrecognized throughout the Williams sisters' career. But again, is that because they have become such great stars of the sport and so big, people want to be recognized because they want to truly be a part of that legend? Or is it a selfish reason? Because, you know, we all like to be surrounded by greatness. Nobody can deny that. Everybody likes that. But what is the motivation behind it? Do you just want to be a part of the story? Or do you want to say, you know, like, I made you? What is it? And I'm really not sure. I mean, I'm really not sure. I can definitely see both sides of it. I can see it coming from both angles. And I do feel like it happens to people of color more. But maybe people of color are just better at some things. So we talk about them in different ways because they get to the top. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, let's be honest, though. We talk about Caro. I mean, Caro's father is like, I mean, I feel like Caro's father has cultivated this model pretty well.
We talk about, but you know what? No, that's a good point. However, we talk about it differently. We talk about it very differently. We talk about people. No, we talk about people not getting along with him and not staying around and not getting along with her because she can't get away from her daddy. We don't talk about people that have come and gone as a way of helping her, per se. Well, it's just, it's different. It's a very different conversation.
Well, and also I want to point out, well, she was the number one, Caroline, but also Maria. There is a story. I know that it can't be true. The story in and of itself can't be true. That, you know, Yuri came to America with $8 in his pocket with Maria, with a dream. And I was just like, where the fuck you going with $8 in your pocket? You can't come to any boat in America with just $8 in your pocket. And it's obvious that someone assisted these people, that they had to depend on the largest of others in order to get into the Baccalaureate Academy. You didn't just get in for free, that people pay. But she don't acknowledge anyone per se. At least I've never heard it. She may have said it.
But they don't get criticized for that.
And they don't get criticized for it. In part, it's part of their lore and their story and the ingenuity of Yuri and Maria. And no one talks about, and there's no one clamoring to say, I didn't get recognized for Maria's greatness. But when it comes to Osaka and Serena, people are clamoring and saying they want recognition. Oh, and they're willing to say this instead of simply saying it isn't, and they're willing to go on the record to say this, like, I didn't get any acknowledgement, etc., etc. My thing is just like, that a lot of times you might be butthurt about something, but to air in your grievance publicly might not be the case, might not be the appropriate thing to do. I would acknowledge also that you pointed out, Andrine, that someone is actually suing them. And that I think might be a different case altogether because allegedly they signed a contract. No, you get in 50% of lifetime earnings.
20%, right? 20% of lifetime.
20% lifetime. I don't know who signed that.
You know what, though?
Or maybe they did.
You signed it because you're not entirely certain that your kid's gonna get anywhere. You know what I mean? You're like but listen, it's a gamble. It's a gamble. The family was gambling. Listen, if you look at that story, it seems to me the family's gambling a little bit. They've got these two kids that they think are talented beyond belief, and they're trying to do the Richard Williams formula. But they don't know if it's going to work because they're homeless at times, they're moving apartments at times, things are happening all the time. They're not sure. So somebody comes to you and say, listen, I'm going to offer you this. And you're like, sure, I'll sign this. Who knows? You're not going to be able to hold me accountable.
I don't think.
Why would you?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Not gonna hold me accountable?
But they didn't read the fine print. That's what I think.
Or they signed it not thinking anything will ever come of it.
But
who thinks they're? Listen, you might say it, but you might not really believe that. Really, like Richard Williams believed.
Andrine, okay. But
listen, Realz. Let's not pretend people are logical. We have seen this. Tommy Haas did that. Tommy signed deals with people offering a cut of whatever future earnings he got. Nobody talks about that, but that was something I remember reading that years ago.
Yeah, I remember that, but wasn't that up to a time? Like you get like 5 years of my future earnings?
But that's a person who has a sense of
to a certain cap.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You would never get more than $1 million.
Sure, but you're gambling on the fact that you think your daughters are gonna turn around and bring money into the family. Who's to say that? But maybe you're not really paying attention, and you think to yourself, "What's really a lifetime earning? 10 years, maybe 5 years? That's not much."
But I have to say one rather interesting note, not to do with her, but it's funny that so this is like siblings involved in a pro sport, right?
Yeah.
And for I'm thinking off the top of my head that in a lot of cases you have these siblings, right? And everyone keeps thinking two siblings who are playing a sport, and they say, "Oh my God, the older one is a really talented
one. It's the best one. I know."
And then something happened, and it's the younger one that came around, just like boom out of here. Because and Venus and Serena, I think, are very exceptional in the sense that everyone was just like, "Oh my God, Venus is amazing." And when Richard just like, "Oh, if you think Venus is amazing, look at the other one." Everyone's just like, "You can't get any better than Venus. Like, you really can't. Like, Venus is the shit." And then Serena came along and was just like, "What is this?" And I've seen.
Yeah, but he said that from the beginning.
Yeah, even before Venus was a big deal.
But and I've seen that the Murray brothers. Because everyone
who said anything about the Murray brothers? What did anybody think was good about any of them?
Ooh.
No, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I'm like, did people think Jamie was better?
Jamie was better, and then Jamie got really injured.
Okay.
At one point, I've seen this in even biathlon, my new favorite sport. Well, it's not my new favorite, but it's one of my favorite sports.
Extremely injured Jamie. Okay. Okay, let's move on.
But anyway, moving on. I'm just simply saying this is what people had said. Just saying.
Okay. Well, I mean, I thought that was noteworthy. I thought it was noteworthy that the comparison between the two siblings and the fact that everyone did think that the older one was the best one, and that they didn't understand what the younger one had to offer because she just sat there like a bump on a log.
Thank you very much. It's been going on forever. I've been vindicated.
Hey, can I tell you something? I didn't know that there was an Osaka sister.
What? How do you not know that? The whole point of it is that her family has got. Listen, did you see? You get to see her.
No, until all of this, I didn't know.
Oh, but I'm telling you, you're going to see her because she got a wild card in Miami. Look for her.
I heard.
I mean, is it like Nole family? Did she learn from Nole fam? If you don't put my sister up in here, I'm not gonna show up.
I know.
Look.
Reels was questioning why Sangha didn't get.
No, I didn't question that. I didn't question that at all.
He's like, Sangha
So-
played qualifying.
No,
however,
wait,
Naomi
wait.
Osaka's sister got a wild card.
Wait.
And
I was
I
only
said, well, he lost
Hold
in
on.
qualifying anyway, so it didn't get wasted, hopefully.
Janina, you will not drag my name in this situation. In this
I'm
way.
told
No.
this is the
No.
conversation. Listen,
hold
don't
on,
make me
hold on.
turn into that person that posts DMs in public.
Go right
Okay,
ahead and post.
wait. Can we have a public announcement about that?
Yeah, don't do it.
Don't do that. Let me just say something. If you're trying to trash somebody by posting DMs,
You
You're
look
both
trash.
You're trash.
Trash.
Right off the bat, you're trash.
Trash.
I mean,
trash.
no, nobody
Don't do
posts
that.
them. Don't post DMs. That's like videotaping. That's like videotaping conversations and then publicizing the tape. Nobody's doing that. No one who's
You're
honorable
being a
is doing
Linda
that.
trip. You're being a Linda trip.
They're tripping. I don't like it.
Mhm.
I mean, unless you're a spy and someone's gonna die, it's the only reason why any of that is legitimately okay.
And if you're Twitter, because Twitter will rat you out to the government in no time.
That's okay. That's true. But anyway, so resolution on the article.
Yeah, I mean,
We're all over the
like I
place.
said, it's gonna be. I've noticed a cold front moving into the Osaka situation. People are not engaging in her. I mean, when I say people, the people who have always saying that you gotta love her, she's amazing.
No, I think you're wrong because I just saw a whole piece of people engaging with her because she's got a new clothing sponsor. I think that the thing about
Who's
that,
selling her clothes? Whose clothes she's selling?
I think she's moving from Nike or Adidas to somebody else. But according to I think a post on my timeline earlier this morning, I think there's a new sponsor on board. But the reality is the most interesting thing about Osaka is the stories about Osaka, not actually Osaka herself. So I think moving forward,
Oh, the
That's-
shade.
but you know what I mean? Like moving forward, that's going to be
What are
the
you
narrative.
trying to say? You're trying to say I'm not interested
No.
person?
Yeah.
I mean, she's probably they're probably all lovely, interesting people, but people
they're
have
not.
to sell. People have to sell newspapers, and so it's going to be the tales about her, the pro tales, the anti tales, all of that. So I don't necessarily know if she's quite black yet. I think she's still a story, and so you want good stories and bad stories, but that's as far as I'm willing to go with it.
Okay.
But,
I was
but-
okay. I'm willing to just say she's less Japanese now. Just saying. She's being treated less Japanese, and I'm seeing a little black tax
Listen,
being stand out.
listen,
there.
as long as
black tax.
as long as Kate Nishikori's around, she will always be less Japanese. Okay.
Well, that is true. And she fell
Thank
asleep
God
talking
for-
to Kay. So there is that.
Uh-huh.
That was just anxiety.
There is that.
Um,
So, but I would say you're right. I mean, anything to keep her name in the news is good news,
Sure.
right?
supposedly.
Yeah. Hey,
So-
no such thing as bad publicity,
And
right?
girl, winning covers the multitude of all sins. Just keep winning.
Keep
Though,
winning and you're
If
good.
that contract is real, girl, maybe winning might be losing. Just saying. Just saying.
They're gonna settle out of court, and the guy's gonna
So-
cash a nice little checks, and that'll be fine.
That'll be
Yeah,
fine.
that's fine. Do what
So,
you do.
Moving
So
on in time to keeping us at a brisk clip, as we're on the subject of wild cards, let me just clarify before Janina gets some crazy people up in my DM and on my thing, because I've already dealt. Look, I have very little patience for idiocy and stupidity on Twitter. We got a president in the White House. We can't be doing for free. I can't be doing this shit for free. Let me clarify my point. Some people have been clamoring about wild cards, and you know how we feel about wild cards. Wild cards are wild cards, right? The people say they have the discretion, they give it to whoever they want to. I think the only reason a time that we made a big issue about wild cards was because we talked about the Maria incident in the Porsche Grand Prix, because we said this is sending a bad signal. This woman has been kicked out for doping, and you're going to give anti-dopers wild card back into events. They should earn their way back up. That's what we were talking about. In regards to the Tsonga incident, so Tsonga was not given a wild card into the main draw. However, Osaka's older sister, Martina, was given a wild card into the main draw. And Martina was given a wild card into the main draw. However, Osaka's older sister, Martina, was given a wild card into the main draw. And Martina was given a wild card into the main draw. However, Osaka's older sister, Martina, was given a wild card into the main draw. And Martina was given a wild card into the main draw. However, Osaka's older sister, Martina, was given a wild card into the main draw. And Martina was given a wild card into the main draw. However, Osaka's older sister, Martina, was given a wild card into the main draw. And Martina was given a wild card into the main draw. However, Osaka's older sister, Martina, was given a wild card into the main draw. And Martina was given a wild card into the main draw. However, Osaka's older sister, Martina, was given a wild card into the main draw. And Martina was given a wild card into the main draw. However, I don't know her sister. I don't know her name, but I'm just gonna say Osaka's sister was given a wild card. Not the one who allegedly plays for Harvard because she doesn't have a sister who goes to Harvard. That was the thing, Janina. Like, reporters were out there saying she had a sister who was doing some crazy thing, and she was just like, the crazy thing is that I don't even have a sister who does that. She does have a sister. But anyway, she was given a main card, wild card, and she's 300 and something. And I know one person mentioned it, but Sasha Vickery wasn't given a wild card. I would say this in the people's defense. Now, a wild card is supposed to give just that, right? Someone who is like outside of the bubble to get in. A wild, that's what it is. It's given to everyone. And a lot of times we know how wild cards is very political. That like one tournament may give someone a special wild card here so that they can get someone else a wild card elsewhere in the future, etc., etc. Now that they give the sister, I mean, like if you're the number one player in the world and defending champion, and you can't give your sister a hookup, I don't even know what you could be doing. Like you ain't got no juice.
Listen, all I'm saying is, as long as she doesn't mind that you're going to constantly refer to her as Naomi's sister.
At this point, yeah. I mean,
She doesn't get a name yet.
I think the wild card speaks for itself.
Right.
Although I don't think that. Are you trying to tell me that Sasha had to work her way into this instead of getting a lovely wild card? That doesn't seem fair to me.
Well, I mean,
is this black on black crime?
Fair.
Is this black on black crime?
This is the whole point of wild card. It is a bypassing the regular route. That's what they're there for. In terms of Sanga, I suspect that in Sanga's case, didn't he have sickle cell? He ain't supposed to be traveling. He said he can't travel.
No, he said it takes him a long time to recover, which is he probably came early, mid-time through Indian Wells to recover enough to be able to play Miami. Get it right. Don't be putting words in his mouth.
But didn't he say Miami was in doubt?
No, he said he wasn't. Well, he just said he wasn't playing Indian Wells because.
Well, you know what? Ultimately, he came. He got some sun, and that was fine. I mean, listen, I'm fine with Osaka, using her influence to get her sister a wild card. I mean, not really. I'm just being facetious. But family. But the reality is, she's gonna have to prove herself. She's gonna have to hit some balls. I mean, and as long as she knows that she's only there because of her sister, which I think that's an uncomfortable dynamic. She knows that, but the check is real, isn't it?
The check isn't going to her sister. The check is going to her.
You know what, though? But you know what? Those things play out in really odd ways. So
everyone has benefited from a wild card at some point in their career, and you can't always get a wild card. So I'm not even mad at this situation. I'm just saying that look, if every tournament she's getting a wild card, then we have a question to be asked.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get there.
But
cross that bridge when we get there.
But that's not what happened. She just got a one-time hookup, and also.
But you know what? Why are you convinced it's one time? If you get hooked up once, why can't you get up twice?
I'm just saying. Well, she could be, like I'm saying, but we haven't seen the second time yet. Right? We just see this one time, and also, they're in Miami. Florida has a huge Haitian population. Maybe they're trying to bring the Haitian people out there to the new facilities. Just saying, that might be one thing. Hey,
anybody out anyway? I don't have an objection to it. I mean, use your name, use whatever you can. I mean, it's a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit.
And Sasha Vickery is in the main draw already.
Good.
I think she won 2 qualifying rounds, so she's there. And I kind of think, I don't want to be mean, but I think players of Sasha's caliber should be moving up this year, and she should be qualifying in direct entrant into all these tournaments.
Well, should and would are two different things.
Yes, that is true. But I think it's time for a lot of these younger players to be making a move and leave the qualifying draws for the likes of I don't know, Flipkins, Punt and Saver, those kind of people.
Leave Flipkins alone. Remember, Flipkins used to be my top 6. Anyway, let's continue.
So we dealt with the wildcard incident, and I guess we should tackle the ATP because that's going to be the mammoth size thing to deal with.
How mammoth it is, but go for it.
So I think there are 2 competing ATP issues, basically, I guess, with the player council situation, which I guess to some extension goes to the Justin Gimelstob situation. And also, again, as always, communication between players and amongst players and about their sport. I'm of the impression that players don't communicate at all. Like there's no real system of communication. We should probably try sending out homing pigeons or ravens or something because
They should have a
apparently
WhatsApp group. How do they not have a WhatsApp group?
because in 2019 everybody got Instagram account, everybody got Insta stories, everybody got WhatsApp, they're all on Twitter, they're all
Listen,
on they're doing on the gram, they got Facebook group, but no one seems to can't communicate with each other. I don't
I
understand it.
I
think the
like that they're not
communication thing is
communicating.
bullshit.
I think it's great that they're not communicating because then they're throwing shade, and I love it. I love it when they throw shade at each other.
I think it's actually not a lack of communication. I think there was a group in the ATP that wanted to do a hostile takeover, and they did. I mean, the only thing that strikes me as weird about the vote in the end about the leadership of the ATP was that it was clear that ATP was stuck, and so they left it to their representation to make them on stick, right? They were trapped when they were doing the vote, 50-50, couldn't break through. And so they're like, hey, reps, why don't you handle it? But the thing that strikes me is that in some ways the reps should have represented that stuckness. So all the votes should have gone in one direction.
Girl.
Right? Like, I mean if you're stuck and if the group is stuck, then that tells you there's a tension between the yes and the no, right? So if you have 2 votes, is that what they had? Then one should go yes and the other should go no.
Theoretically.
Okay, 3, but one should at least have gone in one direction, right? To reflect the fact that there's tension. And otherwise, you shouldn't have been stuck. If there was unanimous agreement about the direction to go, then the vote should have reflected that unanimous push. But it clearly wasn't that. So,
but then
you want to know what happened?
Nole came out and say, well, the representative voted however they wanted to do.
But how do you do that? What? Don't they represent you? Don't they vote for Don't they vote representing your tension? So if 100% of you were, well, I mean, I think what's interesting to me about it is all of the sort of underlying assumptions about the vote. Right? So there's an assumption that the ATP has a brand that will continue to add value to the universe. Right? That's the assumption, is that they're going to be in a position to leverage some sort of power for the next 5 years or so, so that they can go up against tournaments because they think they have a product that's viable.
Well, they have the upper hand.
They have the upper hand. They believe that. I mean, I think that's an interesting assumption. And I hope it bears through for them, right? Because you have to be in a powerful position to be able to, one of the things that always happens to me is like you hear the ATP talk and they always compare themselves to really popular sports. Yes. And I was like, why don't you compare yourself to a niche sport like, football, I don't know, no, that's not a niche sport. But I'm talking about like they compare themselves to soccer, football. Those are not niche sports. Tennis is a niche sport. So if you're going to do this, compare yourself to gymnastics. Compare yourself to... you know what I mean? Like, compare yourself to sports that are on your level. Like, so that we can understand the parameters and the concerns. But if you sit around and tell me that you're like and you're comparing yourself to the 500 ranked basketball player, I'm like, honey, basketball players get cash. They bring in crowds, they bring in fans, they bring in advertising revenue. You're not even near
they're
that.
Always on TV. They're always on TV.
But you know what I mean? So I'm just saying. So it's and even when they try to do it with golf, I'm like, you're not even comparable to golf because golf again also is generating a ton of cash. So I'm just always confused about the parameters they're using.
Yeah,
they're coming for her. They're coming for her.
And what is also annoying to me is the lack of clarity. You get on Twitter, you're talking. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you're fighting for, but people want to get outraged. I don't know what I'm outraging for. I can't say I'm for what you want and I'm against what you want.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This is like, I have no idea what the end game is supposed to be. Like, what is your goal? What are you trying to get? This has to be, I mean, clearly they're not sharing. This is about more than I don't like somebody and I want somebody new. Something somewhere happened and it pissed some people off.
But here's the
or
thing.
a person.
Oh,
But they're
I
not talking
think
about what?
they said that. They said the perception is, and this is interesting, the perception they have is that anyone that represents the players has to have a slightly combative relationship with the tournaments. And they believe that Chris Kermode was too much a friend of the tournaments, which then necessarily means that they weren't
Yeah.
a friend of the player.
That's the public statement. What the fuck really happened?
I don't think
But-
it has anything to do with the public statement because that's
But-
exactly
No, I'm
that's
not
one
buying
of the
it.
but that's
But
one of
here's
the
the
reasons
thing.
why they vote. It doesn't have to be a conspiracy. It's one of the reasons why they voted off one of their members previously, was that they thought the member was voting in
Richard
collusion
Rashid.
with Rashid. They thought he was thinking more about the tournament.
Rather.
Yeah,
But
right.
here's
They
the-
thought
but-
right. So
But
I
here's
think
the thing
people
that I find
perceive this
confusing.
as a competition, right, between.
But then
the
Nole
tournament.
said to me, the representative did what they wanted to do anyway. So I am confused what it is you want, what it is that they wanted. So you're saying, therefore, that they did something that was not to your liking. You want, or is it that Nole wants to remain friendly and good terms and be seen as a good guy? Like you said, this was a hostile takeover, and he didn't want the public to perceive him as being a dictator. Is that what it is? Because then they issued a really bullshit statement, right? They had all the world to bullshit statement to address something, and then they got on it to drag Federer and Rafa. And in many cases, I do blame. I would say that there is some, Federer. I mean, like, you could have go call these people. You had their number. Rafa, as always, you're shady as fuck. Your phone was charged. But you seen a message, you couldn't reach out. But I think from Roger's statement, he said he tried to reach out even before Indian Wells, and Novak said, "We shall speak at Indian Wells." But I'm saying y'all met in Melbourne. Y'all had a players' council meeting in Melbourne where everybody's supposed to be there. Indian Wells was supposed to be the second one. And then, I don't know, it seemed as if nothing happened. No conversation was happening. No conversation ever happened.
Listen, these are selfish people used to thinking entirely of themselves. Trying to submit themselves to a group process is very difficult. And I think it's been proven the case. And I actually don't buy this whole idea that Novak, Federer and Rafa failed to reach out. Because you know what? To be honest, if they did, and if they had, in some sense, overreached, people would have said that they were getting in the way of Novak's time and Novak's period in the ascendancy as president. And at some point in time, you've chosen someone as the president, and you think it's up to them to make the best decisions for the group. You're not going to run around behind them and be like, I mean, Rafa did his time and Federer did his time. It's Novak's time. And so the question that I think they have is, what's the decision you've made, Novak? Why did you make that decision? And what do you want to get out of it?
Right.
Nobody has suggested that they're in love with Kermode and he shouldn't go or stay or any of that. It seems like people are just like, well, then what did you want?
Exactly.
Fine, you've gotten rid of Kermode. Then what's your vision? It doesn't seem that anyone's crafting a vision, or at least they're not sharing it publicly. Maybe they actually are talking in DMs. And in this case, I wouldn't mind if somebody
But that's some bullshit.
Stop it,
But here's the thing with that, right? Novak is responsible for the players in the top 20, and he ain't gotta tweet the whole 1,750,000 ATP players. He just gotta tweet 19 other people. Okay, that's a regular size WhatsApp group, right? Because they're on that ranking.
You just put him out there. I did not even think of it like that. Listen, I just think it's very interesting that he says nothing. Novak says nothing really. And you've got, the two other biggest people in your sport saying, I reached out to you and you blew me off. They're saying this publicly. So something else has to. There's just more. There's just more going on.
Part to that is that
Roger,
he then had the player council issued a statement saying these icons could have reached out to Novak, but Roger said he did just that.
I did. Roger said my phone was charged. I got nothing.
Well, listen, I think it's Novak's time. And I think he believes that he has the capacity to take the tour in a brand new direction, and that he wants a lot of the people who have been maybe loyal to others cleaned out, And he thinks that it's just time to move the sport in a new direction, move out of London, not have London as the base for so many different things, what have you. I think
Where
it's
the fuck's he
fine.
going? Serbia?
But you know what, though? I think it's fine. I think what's interesting for them is that they think that they have a viable product that can compete with other sports for the next 5 years.
Well,
I mean, I think that's
just being
interesting.
silly. Yeah.
I mean,
happening.
I just, I think what you're going to find is a really interesting compromise. I think you're going to have some shuttled tournaments. I think, because let's be honest, I don't think a lot of the people on the tour can put asses in the seats. There's just not that many of them, and
No.
they need time to do that. And if you want to get into a conversation with a tournament about whether they should be getting more of the money or less of the money or any of that kind of stuff, or revenue and all that kind of jazz, I mean, I think it's an interesting time to make that case. I just don't think that they have a compelling enough product to do that. But, good luck to them. I love men's tennis. I hope it works.
I'm just saying two things, right? Because we're noting this, at least I'm noticing this kind of issue happening in other sports, right? Players feel a type of way, but and they have issues and grievance, which is legitimate, right? Because they're working within a capitalist model, right? And I am anti-capitalist all the way.
Sure.
And I'm here for that discussion. But what I think, Novak, you're gonna need in order for this to work, we have seen this through history, right? Bigger and better and smarter have attempted this. And here are the keys: clarity, communication, vision, and people. Can't do this alone, brother. You cannot do this alone.
Or you do a hostile takeover and run things down the ground like other people have done in the past. I mean, that's I'm not saying, but it's a model. It's a model. So it's an existing one.
That is
so
true.
Your
You're
presumption.
Kill the golden goose, right? Kill the golden goose. Imagining that there is definitely gonna be gold in there.
You know what?
I mean, I think it's hilarious, but good on listen, everyone has to try. Everyone has to try. And you know what? If Novak is able, let me tell you this, if Novak is able to get the tour to be more equitable without sacrificing the women, because that's coming, because Novak doesn't believe in equal pay, but that's just another thing. So if Novak is able to get the tours to be more equitable, if he gets the little guy to get as much money or as much as possible out of tournaments, and then more power to him. I want to see that happen. And if that's his aim, then I hope so. But I just want to say that you all turn over the leadership of your organization to a guy that was just hooked up with a guru for 6 months to a year.
Right, and he believes that you can play tennis through telekinesis. So you think about that.
It's next level. And listen, I believe in telekinesis. My book says it exists. Sure, whatever.
Okay, well, tell me how that works for you on a court.
It does, apparently.
I'm just saying. I tell you what, Nole, you can spread all the love you want to do, but I'm telling you, the capitalists, they don't give a fuck about love, okay? They don't give a shit about people. It's about profits, okay? And they have no problem with pushing you to the side and getting someone else. And they're a bunch of hungry, starving, lower level players, and they would do something strange for some change.
You're so horrible. I mean, we don't know.
Look,
we're hoping for the best. We're hoping for the best. Listen, I'm not invested in co-mode. I don't care. I mean, I think the most important thing was, did people feel like you had a transparent process, and that their votes and their wishes were
yeah, I'm gonna say that's considered. A hard no.
I think that's the no, and that's the quality of what this is about. It's not about the decision you made. It's about how you made the decision. And to be honest, it's about the cloak of people you surrounded yourself with to make that decision. And so that's tricky. So, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Yep.
So we need to move on from that, because we have some bigger fish to fry, and it's going to be so much more fun to talk about.
What's the fish?
The biggest fish is what's her fucking name? Martina Navratilova.
Okay.
So we said before a couple episodes ago, that we weren't going to talk about it then, because Realz had a rebuttal piece to write
Thank you,
when
Andrine, for
she
forcing me to do it. Andrine
yes.
makes me. Oh.
So
And
he wrote a response to Martina's article, her op-ed piece that she wrote about transgender people, transgender women, we should say, playing sport. And full disclosure, I did not read all of Martina's piece because I did not want to pay for it. I felt like I had heard enough about it and seen enough screenshots to get the gist of it. So I mean, I just want to put that out there. I did read Realz's piece. Highly recommend it. I entered that piece needing information, not being fully knowledgeable about things, and I want to say that it was educational, it was informative, it led you to where you needed to go to get more information. It was not just an opinion piece. So if you need, like I did, to maybe learn about some of this stuff, even down to basic terminology, it's a good place to start, and it was really well written. So well done. Let's dig in.
thank you. That's what people gotta do with your BA in English. They ain't pay me no other way, but hey. Sometimes you just gotta do it. And thank you. You can ask questions, because I always like questions. So
Well, first of all, why don't you just give us a summary of what happened that made you write that?
let me
Quick
just say
summary. Quick.
let me just say, for as much of the praises that you're giving me for that piece, you should probably give me more praise for restraint, because I swear to God,
Listen, I could hear your voice as I was reading
you
it,
know what,
and I
you know
thought
what,
he really wanted to say.
you know what, someone else mentioned that. I was just like, so I should also mention that I was given a charge that, a friend of ours, I don't want to, I think we can say Sean, he's just like, he called me and said, like, you have to do something about this. Like, like, do justice do justice for us. Um, and I said, Andrea and I spoke, and I was going to write something. He said, whether you're going to do it or write something, I'll go on the podcast. I said, I'm going to write something. So basically, Martina is bringing forward this argument that when I read her piece, someone put a screenshot of the article online. And when I read it, I was just like, no, she didn't write this. Like, there is no way she could have written this. This is insane. Like, you can't, like, not Martina. She's a
What was the
lesbian.
piece of it that you found most offensive?
Like,
Or you
well,
probably can't pick one. Pick
well,
three.
exactly. From the even the subtitles, right? Like the bit that she wrote, and just the actually have the actually I don't want to even reread the mess that she wrote, but just from the beginning of the article, when she started off by saying, like, these women are cheaters, and the barrier shouldn't be a penis. Like, like I would, and I was just like, what is she talking about? Like, as someone who has been in this sport, and someone that the history that she has faced as being a lesbian, being discriminated against, that whole Chrissy versus Martina rivalry, and when there were accusations thrown at her that she quote unquote is a man, that I think she would have shown some level of sensitivity. I didn't care. I didn't mind the fact that she may not have wanted transgender to participate in the sport. That's, I'm not saying it's okay to have those feelings, but I can understand people having certain feelings about that. But people can express these feelings in a completely different manner and be far more respectful to the people. Because for me, transgender women, men, trans people are humans, and we should never forget that. And they are a marginalized group, and very marginalized within the LGBTQ community. So the other thing that really got me mad was that when I was reading what you're saying, the language which she's using, it sounded very much like when people were just like any other time people were trying to exclude other people from a sport. And this is sports we're talking about. It's sports. It might be professional sports. It might be serious to a lot of people, but it's professional. It's sports. There are a lot more important things in our life that we should be concerned about. And if we're going to go about barring people and using this kind of language, with the same kind of language we've used to exclude people of color from many and any arenas, particularly not just in sports but in education. This is the same language we use to bar people of color from education. then like we're into that wholly totally different territory, and I thought that was really really egregious, and I was really upset that no one in tennis took her to task, that everyone acted like this. Oh my god, this is just an opinion piece, that the usual suspect rollout. She's an amazing person. It's almost as if you can say a lot of crazy shit and then say world peace, and then everybody's just like, oh my god, she's a nice person, oh my god, he's a nice person, see, he mentioned world peace. No, there was so many problematic things there, and people should have stepped up. It shouldn't have been for me, a blogger, and we do this podcast. It shouldn't be for me to do this. Martina is a public figure, and more people should have been up in arms and took her to task. And that's where these problems. That's one of the things that really drove me to actually have to write something, and write something that I thought was really. I couldn't be quote unquote emotional about it, because this is where we start. I mean, a couple of months ago, we saw the bathroom situation, and that when this bathroom situation for barring trans people from bathroom, we know how these things play out in real life. This isn't just about a bathroom. This is about people's lives. This is literally about a life and death situation.
But I do think it was. I think the silence, though, while distressing, was useful, because I think that silence suggested agreement.
Right.
And so yeah, right. And so I think it was really important for, I was definitely an advocate of, you need to look at her arguments, and you need to attack each one of them logically. I'm definitely the one that was arguing for restraint, because I think that it was a teachable moment, because I think a lot of people have a lot of quiet, unspoken biases about trans people. And I can understand why you are angry, because Martina is a source of education, because she represents a certain group. And so people are saying, well, if she's part of the group and she's rejecting this group, she's rejecting the T of the group, then that means that
it is okay now.
It's fully okay.
We have been given license to do this. And that is precisely what happened. That within a week of this article, someone in one of those Midwest state decided, you know what, I'm going to sponsor a bill, and he quoted Martina. He literally quoted
and that's super dangerous. But I think I think one of the things that's noteworthy about this is we've got to stop giving people legitimacy of point of view simply because they're part of a community. Like, you still need experts, you still need research, and you still need facts. I mean, the thing about Martina was that she spent a lot of time just basically giving her perceptions and her feelings. And her, you know what I mean? It's exclusively that. Do you know what I mean? It was exclusively her feelings. And really, in some ways, what she essentially did was basically lay all of her prejudices out on a table as fact. And then people didn't challenge her at all. So what I really appreciated about the piece were sort of the links at the bottom to define the terms, so that you're not going with Martina's terms. You're not saying things like pretend man or fake person. You know what I mean? Like, you had to define these terms, because you have to understand who people are.
Because you have a penis, and this perception that, like, oh, someone just wakes up in the middle of the night, and like Pierre Hughes is gonna be like, you know what, I'm not making it on the singles market, on the ATP. Tomorrow I'm gonna sign up and say, hey, WTA, I'm gonna be Alize Kone doubles partner for, in Charleston. That's not how that works.
Well, it's so strange, right? Because you would never say that you woke up one day after seeing another woman in the bathroom, in the locker room, and said, I really want women. That's what's turned me on suddenly. What you would say is that this has been a journey for you, which is what she said. Right. When she talked about her lesbianism. So it's strange that you wouldn't allow another person that fullness as well, right?
Okay?
Yeah, that was what was egregious to me about the piece, was this the kind of the lack of interest in understanding fully who the people she was talking about were.
She didn't. It was such a totally disrespectful.
But I mean, I have zero respect for I mean, I haven't had respect for Martina for a long time.
That's
I mean,
true.
and that's
That's why,
that's that's
you know,
just that's neither here nor there. But I mean, but I was a bit surprised because it's always important when people find themselves as part of a community that the least you can do is look around your community at the most vulnerable member
yeah, and she
and bring
didn't care
care,
to be
right?
she didn't care to be educated. That was what made it worse. Okay, you could come from a place of ignorance, right? You can start off and being like, like I think this way, etc., etc. But then to then run off and being like, oh, people are trying to tell me something, but I'm not trying to be an expert, etc., etc. And when people are trying to speak to her, she's just like, oh my God, they're tyrants, they're bullying me, and I don't stand for being bullied. Bitch,
Well,
you
she
wrote an
had
entire article trying to
well, she has that
marginalize.
in common with Ellen DeGeneres, right? Isn't that what Ellen told? Our
Kevin,
favorite comedian Kevin
Kevin
about
Hart.
these when people were challenging about his misperceptions in the way that he had characterized various members of the community was that, hey, they're just haters. Of course, everybody's sitting around hating your cash, right? That's exactly what people are doing. But you know what I thought was interesting and surprising in the piece was that the WTA had a policy.
Well, but this is something that which was surprised that she should have known this, right? But I think that she was aware of this situation, and I think that was what I really don't have an answer to is to why she felt she needed to say something about this. But why she decided to take this upon herself. And I suspect it might be this, that maybe because I don't know how long the WTA had this policy. I just knew when it was updated. So I knew it had to, but it had to have been this for a while because, like I said, trans people have been able to participate in Olympics both to the gender in which they feel, in which they identify since 2004. So this policy had to have been in place since 2003 because they could have participated at the last Olympics.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense. But
since
I
2000
mean, so what's your suspicion?
well, I mean, I suspect that but I just think she has there is, like I pointed out in the article, that there is a general feeling among some within the white establishment and maybe other gays of color within the power structure that they feel that it is okay for them to put trans people on the bargaining block. Um, in order so that they can
To
gain political
trade,
power.
to
To trade,
trade, like
that,
trade your.
yeah.
Sort of like how the white feminists betrayed black feminists.
Yes, that's
Okay.
how I'm saying that they're willing to be like, like we know best, and we're willing to push you to the side and be marginalized. And because in order to, because in we perceive generally political power in that it
Mhm.
has to be over someone,
Transactional. Yes.
not only transactional, but you must be above someone. And
Yeah.
they're willing to put trans people at the bottom because people hold these people as being very suspicious. And they want to relegate trans people to the very edge of the society, if not into the woodlands. And so,
That is so strange, right? It's such a strange thing because, and I mean, maybe because the group has chosen marriage equality as its mantle, which was essentially love is love, right? And so my love is not different than your love, which okay, but so I think it's strange to land there because people have always perceived gay people, or in the beginning, right? In the beginning, before you made any sort of political power or leverage, as off, as not belonging. So all of the language that she's using is all the language that have ever been used towards her own group and towards
right.
herself.
So to me, this is what I'm saying, that she's using the same old tired tropes that basically have been used to
It's
marginalize
non-reflective.
us. And what is even more dangerous about this is that she seemed to think that people are okay with gays now. But
Still.
they're not, you know what I mean? Like, okay, they're like, "Oof, we are here, we have arrived. Our
They
only
might be
mission now
okay
is to
with
move
moneyed
up."
ones. They
They
might be
are,
okay with money
yeah,
to.
and that's not what it, because the same gentleman who was quoting her, he wasn't just talking about trans people, he was talking about the whole community. Just like, we don't want these people here
Wow.
because people advocates against LGBTQ in the Trump administration. They're going after gay marriage. They're
Yeah.
not going after trans marriage, they're going after every non-heterosexual who's not within that spectrum. But the thing that really is that this thing can play out and affect, it's because, okay, whether trans people are not clamoring to get into professional sport. They're just not. We've had 16 years of evidence. 16, what, over 10, 15 years now? We see that the numbers are minimal, if much, really, right? Maybe it
What
might be
about the
because,
runner that she calls trans who's
well,
not?
oh my God. So here's the interesting thing that I've learned. So it seems that WTA is one of the only, I shouldn't say only, I shouldn't say only, I really don't know. But it's interesting that in track and field, which is where, a lot of these issues usually come out in, that people seem to hold suspicions for people like Caster Semenya, which is hyperandrogenism, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I might be incorrect on the term, which is that they suspect that there is a higher than normal level of testosterone than there are about trans people. So people would have policies allowing trans people to participate in sports freely once they fall within the particular parameters. You don't need to have surgery. But when it comes to these women who seem to exhibit higher than normal testosterone, they are far more suspicious of those. That cis women, which is rather interesting. I don't know why. Actually, my suspicion is that a lot of our perception about bodies and ability, it's really junk science and it's merely anecdotal evidence. That a lot
Yeah,
of
that's
times
true.
what is happening in science, because if you really think about it, there has been no real way to measure human potential, human output, and human body potential. Insofar as to say that I can't say a 5'6" man can only do X amount, right?
Yeah.
Because if you look at track and field, um, what's his name? Usain Bolt is 6'4", 6'5", and he was not the typical sprinter. That 20 years ago, he would not have been running 100 meters. In fact, people still believe that he's more of a 400-meter runner, that his 100-meter potential is not. He could have broken the world record in the 400 if he had put his mind to that. But typically the sprinter, Christian Coleman, who came second at the last World Championship, he's like 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", and Usain Bolt is 6'5", and he beat Usain Bolt. How do we account for that, right? I mean, not to say that he's faster than Usain Bolt, but we don't have any way of actually measuring human potential in that regard. So a lot of times people would look at a woman and look at a guy and say, oh, this guy is doping. This guy is this. This is unfair. Because what happened with Caster Semenya, she's a cis woman. She's not transgender. Is that someone said, oh, I think she's cheating. I don't think it's fair that she's probably a man. So in the past, we used to have gender tests, and the gender test used to be women had to get naked, and a doctor, usually a male, would inspect you like a piece of meat. Literally, that was what happened. Then they recognized that gender is not necessarily about outer body genitalia, because there are a lot of intersex people. And a lot of this is because we don't talk about. So, like, the mystery around bodies is that typically humans do not talk about bodies with each other. People are free to have conversation with their doctors about what's going on with their bodies. So it is not uncommon you hear a lot of people talking and they really don't know what they're talking about. And in doing this, in this system that is happening here, you often have a lot of mischaracterization. So Caster Semenya is basically a witch hunt. So in her case, the IAAF, went to the Court of Arbitration and said that she must take hormone suppressant because she have a 1 to 3% advantage over quote unquote regular women, right? Now the Court of Arbitration said, what the fuck are y'all talking about? This is ridiculous. We're not wasting our time with this. You need to come back and come back with more science. Now, a guy had a conference on Caster Semenya, and he presented absolutely no science. He went to a science conference, had a discussion about Caster Semenya and what he believed is going on with her. He had never met this woman, never tested her, had no science. And that is one of the things that's shocking with Caster Semenya's case, because the IAAF has never revealed anything about what they found, but they're creating all this hoopla and then publicly shaming this woman and talking about all this manner.
The thing
But
I don't understand is that first of all, that's an advantage regardless, right? Nobody says the same thing about Michael Phelps when he has a particular body
Exactly.
that's better suited for swimming.
And
Nobody
we
says
don't
that
have a
about any other.
testosterone level. We don't have a
Yeah,
testosterone test to say,
yeah, no,
okay, everyone is
no.
at 50, must be at a 56% or whatever the case may number that is. We don't have these things. So this is what I'm talking about. Like there is no real way of measuring human potential. And what often happens with these tests is that the scientists and the researchers usually have one perception, already have the result that he wants, and that's how he's looking at it. And
Well,
when it's being
or
peer
the
reviewed,
perception is, yeah,
it
it's
falls
biased.
apart. It falls
Yeah,
apart completely because every
yeah.
test, every study that they've tried to have in terms of regarding issues around castetomania and to a certain extent, anti-trans research, they've always turned back problematic because it's like this isn't
So,
scientific at all.
so then, where did you land with the Martina thing? Like, I mean, I thought that I saw that she wrote another sort of like an extended apology of some sort to retract or not retract
No,
things. Like, where did she land?
she retracted to say that it was unfair to her to call them cheats.
Okay,
And
that's
that was
gentle of
it.
her.
And yes, and she said, she said she did some research, but you know what? Hey, people, I don't have a doctorate in trans people.
So then stop talking.
I
Say, I
know.
don't have a doctorate in trans people, and I'm going to stop talking because I don't know what I'm talking about. And so
So
therefore, don't listen to what I have to say. Or you know what she should say is, I'm actually scared of what this might mean for my sport. And so I'm going to wait until the research bears out before I run around and say crazy things.
but here's the thing, but right? Because I mean, look, you have Balkova, right? She's what 5'6", 5'4", right?
Hmm.
She can give any woman, no matter how tall they are, a run for their money. How do you
Hmm.
account for that? Height, weight, quote unquote strength. This That's not how sport plays out, right? The
Yeah.
biggest man won't win. You know what I mean? The
Yeah,
quote
always.
Our definition of what strong is what it looks like. It's like
Yeah.
he looks like a strong person, right? What we consider the strongest man at the Olympics is usually weightlifters. They're usually like 5'8", depending. They're in a weight class. Weightlifting is done by weight class, so they measure your weight and your weight ratio to how much you are lifting. That's how
So
that.
so what do you want people to take away from the failures of Martina's like attempts at conversation? And have you seen anyone do it better?
There was one of the articles I linked to, though it wasn't talking about trans people particularly. I think it talked about how people look at trans, and it even asked us posit this question, just like, yes, we live in a world where we divide sports by gender, but could
Mm-hmm.
it be that the results that we're seeing is because we always treat these genders differently?
Mm-hmm.
That maybe it could be that because we are getting faster and quote unquote stronger, right? We
Yep.
are lifting heavier, getting faster, et cetera, than we were some years ago. And part of this, most of this, is because of technology, right? We've changed the track on which we run on. We've changed the equipment in which we hit with. We have much more steroids, probably. You know what I mean? Training equipment, and we've learned more about efficient, quote unquote, efficient training body, et cetera, et cetera. But what I want us to take away is just that we don't get to put humanity up on a public debate. We're talking about sports. You can have issues, quote unquote, surrounding professional sport because it is a business, right? But be very careful how we are speaking about other humans because these things don't just translate on the professional level. These things go all the way back down because you're going to because more and more today, young people are identifying as trans at an early age. They're not waiting until they're 50 to come out of the closet, etc. So we are literally putting people's harm in danger when we're having these very strong opinions about I don't think these people should be here, etc., etc. And what scared me the most is that this language that we people are often using to pass these opinions, and it's one anti-science, anti-fact based, and it sounds so like when we're talking about people of color and all of the when we're talking about marginalizing other people, and it's all the same thing. So I want people to be far more cautious in how we engage with this topic. Really look when people are talking about this topic, because when someone tried to engage with me online, I'm just like, sir, you don't know what you're talking about. You really don't. Like, you have done no research. You're coming at me with feelings, and how we feel about a particular situation. It doesn't always mean that it's right, and doesn't mean that our feelings should become popular opinion or become into policy, particularly when it's problematic feeling. Janine, I didn't hear anything from you, so I don't want
I'm
to.
listening. I guess for me, the biggest thing is I just think it's really unfair and it's really sad to have a person who comes from a part of this community to just spread lies. I don't believe for one moment that that Martina thinks that someone woke up one day and decided I'm going to be transgendered.
Actually, I think she might think that.
No,
for
I
real.
think she knows better. I think she doesn't understand it, and she doesn't know how to say that because she doesn't want to admit that she doesn't understand it. I think she knows damn well that the journey isn't that much different than hers, as far as acceptance and what stigmas might be. People might face in society to come out and say that. I think she knows better.
You're giving her too much credit.
Maybe, but I think that she is being weak by saying this is what she believes because she isn't strong enough to say I don't understand. Because you know what? If she really thought that, and she really I don't know why she would turn down an opportunity to learn. She has lost a position to be an ambassador for people that belong to this community in sport. She's been ousted, but she was given the opportunity to be educated before that, and she turned it down. Like, who does that? Who does that? I think that
people who think that they would ever such a policy like this. I think she feel that
I think she just doesn't agree with it, but she doesn't want to say that. I think she doesn't like it. I think she doesn't understand it, but I do not believe that she thinks it's that different than her own. I don't believe that. I do not believe it.
I do. I think she does. I think that she's enjoying being in a position of
power,
superiority and power. I think she's enjoying being in a space where you can say, oh, I suddenly get what it's like to reject and not understand and this confusing thing. Because I think that a lot of us are reared in a certain way to believe a certain kind of thing. And it does take a little bit of extra stretching our own minds and our own understanding to understand things like trans, or people asking you, well, what's your pronoun, or any of those kinds of things, because I've been in those conversations and I'm like, oh wow, this is something I'm going to have to learn, I'm going to have to get to know. It puts you out of your comfort zone.
Sure.
So just because she's been a part, this is the thing that's ironic, it's not that different. Just because you've been a part of a community that has been discriminated against doesn't mean that you yourself don't internalize a lot of self-hatred and therefore extend it to others as soon as you have the opportunity. So
I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah,
I really don't believe
to be in that position of power too.
Yeah, she wants to close the door. She wants to be able to close doors. She wants to be able to say, you are not right. That's a very powerful position for somebody who's always been told that they were not right.
Yeah.
So to suddenly have that option,
I think I'm being misunderstood. I don't think that I don't disagree with any of what you just said. None of it. I'm saying that I truly do not believe that she believes at the core of her soul that someone just wakes up one day and says, you know what? I'm a man and I'm going to be a woman so I can go out there and win shit. I don't think she really thinks that. I don't.
If she does, she's real stupid.
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that.
But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. As we have, it's almost like, I always say tennis is like a microcosm that happens in real life. It doesn't matter specifically what she believes.
Yeah, it's what she says.
It's what she says.
Which is why we have to call bullshit on it.
Because it's like, because
listen, you can always have a conversation.
There are people who really and truly believe think this way, and it doesn't
There
matter.
are, but I'm not going to
here's the
put
thing,
her in
that
that box with
thinking,
those people.
So
that's
wait, so you think this is transactional for her, Janina? Is that your claim? That she's doing this for resources, for reputation, for
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
Shits and
yeah.
giggles?
I don't think it's shits and giggles. I think that she probably fundamentally somehow disagrees with it even being an option for people to change their sex, but she doesn't want to say that. That's what I think.
Oh.
I think she doesn't like it. I think she's probably one of those people that says this can't be something that's real. You're born, however you're born, you are what you are. But she doesn't know how to say that, so she's just gonna lie about it because she knows it's much more clear what happens to people. We have more examples of what happens to people when they take that argument than someone who just says, I think you woke up one day and decided you wanted to do this for sport. Nobody talks like that, so she can get away with that in some respects, because we don't know what that conversation really looks like. That may be something that's had, in her tiny little bubble, but that's not a global conversation, I don't think. But it is a global conversation for people to say, and for people to come down on very, very hard if you're going to say, I don't believe that transgendered people are legit. That's a conversation that we hear all the time and that's debated all the time. And she doesn't want to come down on what liberal people think to be the wrong side of that.
But
that's what I think.
Well, I don't know who she thought she was convincing, because liberals certainly couldn't buy on that mess that she, even if they wanted to agree with her part of what she's saying, that whole the article, the opinion, the op-ed, and the subsequent message on her website was even more messier. But here's the thing. We all know that, we always laugh and say, that we always read, right? We always go out into the research and whatever the case is. So we don't end up looking like a fool. Most people don't do that.
No, they don't.
What Martina, whether I'm not concerned what she believes and what she don't believe. It's what you're putting out there as the message. Because
I
think it does matter. I think it matters.
I mean, it does, but it does. But Martina knows one thing really, really well: tennis. How to play tennis. That's right. That's
every athlete that starts.
I'm not saying that they're not smart, but what I'm saying is the only thing that we are comfortably assured of is that Martina knows tennis.
Right.
Everything else is suspect and should be treated as such. And that's why, listen, while the whole thing was sort of bizarre to read and sort of see play out, it was just another example of we cannot assume a level of expertise just because you are part of a community or just because someone has tagged you in as something. And I didn't take her seriously. Martina has a lot of opinions about a lot of things. And I get your point, Realz, is that she's a part of a platform and she should be, we should be careful about that. But I just take Martina as an expert at tennis, and barely that, because remember, she wasn't even good as a coach of a tennis player.
You know what, Andreen, you know what's problematic with that? And it's not for you and it's not for me, but because we are educated people, and I'm not trying to put us up on a pedestal, we do go out and do the research. We do say that we want to learn. We didn't talk about this before tonight because I had some learning to do. That's the truth. I said, you know what? I started reading this and there were words that I didn't even know because I'm not super familiar with it, but I am now. So now I can have a conversation with it. And that's how we would like most people in the world to operate. But the truth is that they don't. But it becomes a problem when you have someone like Martina Navratilova, who has a platform to be on TV and a microphone in a worldwide audience.
And she has given them a language. She's giving them a language.
I get it. I do, but I get it. But the reality is that listen, I know there's this fear, but I feel like if you believe Martina, you were there already. I don't
think so. I don't think so.
I really do.
Oh, no, I think so. I think you might have been teetering, or you may not know anything.
There's no teetering.
You may not know. Listen,
there's no teetering. She's just affirming your bias. She's affirming you're not knowing.
No.
She's affirming you're not knowing. Listen, if you're uncomfortable. No, it's not about even being gullible.
Yes, it
It's
is,
about
because listen, what if I were that gullible person who said, and I say I admire her, and so if she's saying this and she comes from this community, she must be right, and I'm going
I
to take her
mean,
for at her word. I think
that's
that there
true.
are
I
plenty of
mean,
people out
that's
there that do that,
But
that.
here's
I mean, listen,
and
I
that's
get that.
just as dangerous
but
as
here's the thing
saying,
that I think is
I mean, I get your point. I get your point. There, the
both of you have
salient point
excellent
there,
points, but
this the salient point there is that people admire Martina as having something of
are we
worth to
think
say, and
right,
I
and they
don't
and
agree.
they
But
believe
you're
it,
right?
right.
right?
That's true. That's
You
true.
wouldn't necessarily. Here's the thing: you, Andreen, and nor I, and not Janina, we won't look to Martina for opinion on these subjects, right? We
No,
wouldn't
not at all.
on
I
most
mean,
subjects at
But a
all,
lot of people might.
I
right?
barely
But
look
here's
at
the thing,
Martina for opinions on tennis. But
right,
there you
right,
go. But
because
yes, you're
we're
right.
critical thinkers, and when we hear information, we engage with this information in a different format. We don't just take anything, even if it's from our faves. We're like, okay, I agree to a certain extent, right? But here's the thing: it's almost like when people. I don't want to put this in, but it's a similar situation when we talk about 45, right?
Yes.
45 always engage in racism. I'm not gonna say the word rhetoric, outright racism, right? And racist shit. And people are like, "Oh my god, he said this," and you're right. They were already there, right?
Yep.
And
They were
and
there.
there are some people who are just like, "Well, if the president is saying this, why
Yeah.
don't I
There's a
say this?"
legitimacy. Yeah. There's a
Here's the thing.
legitimacy.
I think
It
there's a
goes
big group
beyond
of
just
people that fall into that category, but you
but
have to be
two things
careful because I
happen.
think there's a lot of people who are willing to be led that don't know.
Right, but here are two things that are happening here with people like Martina and 45. One, they're bringing this discussion to the forefront, right? Something that perhaps would have been people in polite company would have been like, I might have an opinion. I think it kind of be suspect and problematic, so I won't necessarily say it all public. Don't give a damn whoever I'm saying it to. And two, it presents a language, a way of engaging in the subject wrongly, but it does present a way of engaging in the subject. So what then takes away, and we usually see how the media engage in whatever rhetoric, whatever bullshit 45 says, right? They never go at this information critically, right? What often happens is they're taken away and they put the sensational that like so they're gonna ask question, right? Does the president have a point when he says Mexicans are rapists, etc., etc.? They're gonna go
Yeah.
look for facts for
Yeah.
this
They've
support this
opened
kind of
that
thing.
window. They've
Right.
opened
Like
that
in
door. Yeah.
Mexico, we have X amount of people who have sexual assault cases, etc. What no one ever does is that, like, you know what? This shit happens here all the time too. They never extend humanity to everyone. And that's my problem with Martina's piece. She didn't
Well,
extend
basically,
any
and
kind of
also because
humanity.
she's basically opened the door for people to say, "Do people wake up one day and decide that they want to?"
Exactly. And,
No.
and as soon as because any other thing, trans boys and girls compete at the same level until they're like 13 most of the time, like in regular amateur, not necessarily in school, whatever the case may be, unless it's like some kind of heavy. Janina, your children, he plays on a soccer team with girls, right?
Yeah, and he always has.
And
And he
always
will
had
continue to do that
until
until
like
high school
14, high
when they're
school.
forced to separate. Yeah.
And they're forced to separate. So what happens though when you have a trans student, trans boy, or trans girl? Because as I said earlier, what Martina is doing, she allowed for some parents on the sideline being like, "What's that freak doing out there?" Yes, they would have had that feelings to begin with. But what it is, it allowed this now to be public discourse and public discourse in the crazy manner. And that's going to be very problematic. And she hasn't, and no one has called her out on that bullshit. Do you might have feelings about whether trans people can participate in sport to a certain extent, and you want to bring some kind of level of science, whatever the case may be? It's how you engage in this thing, because really and truly, there is really no science to really help back this up.
Oh,
And
it's
every
also
year,
tragic, though. It's also tragic that we have
because
to even take Martina seriously in this space, which is like sometimes just shut up. If you don't know it, shut up.
it never
Just keep
shuts
I
up.
quiet.
mean,
That's it.
That's
listen,
my
this
thing.
is
Shut up.
this is how I think we should end this. I think that we should ask every single one of our listeners to just go ahead and tweet her the
To shut
article,
up.
and maybe she'll and we can and you can
Listen,
put hashtag shut up,
No, you
Send
know
her
what?
a link.
Honestly, I think one of the things I've discovered about some people is that some people argue things in bad faith, and if your contention is right, she argued that in bad faith, and a well thought out article won't change her mind because she was arguing in bad faith in the
A
first
man
place.
convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. That's why something I
Yeah.
always keep in the
Do you
back
know
of
what I mean? And she'll just simply silent it. But I think what's really been useful about it is how revealing she's been about herself. And so I think and I think it's also useful information about the fact that we all need to be really careful about people who we put on pedestals and people who we
Yep.
think have valuable things to say, and that they have valuable transferable things to say. It's fine for you to like what she can say about forehands and backhands, but it might not be useful to care what she says about trans people because her knowledge doesn't extend that direction, and not thoughtfully. I mean, we already know her tennis knowledge is super biased based on who she likes and all of those kinds of things. So we've already seen
we
that
should have
aspect
seen
of
that
it.
when how she engaged in other subjects, but she's never really
Exactly.
about that, right? She just
Well,
mouth off
she's
that.
no, she's not particularly thoughtful. But I mean, in the era of people who have things to say, and I mean, I think Martina gets a lot of leverage because of her past, and so there's a lot of sympathy that has been that I think has been earned by her as a kind of victim.
Also,
But
try and help the people that who used to marginalize. And this is the thing, she's in the
yeah,
room with some
so
people who hated her to begin with.
I
But
know,
now,
and now they're her colleagues and
they're
agreeing with her
colleagues, right?
and like nodding as she writes this piece and talks this way.
Well,
What I
hey,
would like our listeners,
That's
whoever
interesting.
I
they are,
invite her to
to
come on for a conversation.
Oh, who has time? No.
exactly.
I
You
mean, the thing
guys,
is,
don't be
no,
that person.
no. You know what's so funny? I think it's so
Because they're
interesting
giving this
that
message
victim. No,
platform.
I'm not about that. I think that we have to really stop engaging with people who actually don't want to debate. Do not fall for the okie dokie. Like, can we debate whether you're human or not? No.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'm not
It's
about
not.
nobody.
It's not
Oh,
a
no, no,
point
no,
of
no.
that.
Nobody
No,
coming
people do
on.
that.
Nobody
People
coming
do
on
that.
this podcast gets
It's
the okie
disingenuous.
dokie.
No, it's
saying
but you
us.
know what? But engaging them in the first place sets them up. It's disingenuous. They don't have an interest in debating. By virtue of asking the question if this person's engaging in fantastical thinking about waking up the next day, she's opened up a door. It's not a real door. I'm not opening it up and letting her enter. Nah, that's
And
okay.
and she's not willing to even do any kind of research, right?
Exactly. So she doesn't have the background knowledge to
Exactly.
talk about
So
it.
you can't
Which
even engage her with anything because what someone finally said, like, "Oh, we need to do some research," but we should have done it in the first place. Right? You specifically said you don't care to do any of this,
that's
right?
okay.
And when
So
anyone tried to educate you on this, you said they were tired. But what I would say, don't tweet this woman, please. Just let her be. The less she says, the better. But what I would like for us to do, I don't want to be, kumbaya. But I would like for us to, when we should, in these things, we should really be reflected that we are talking about other human beings, and that pretty soon, that if it isn't trans people, it's going to be Black people, it's going to be Asian people, it's going to be.
I think it's
I mean,
always
it already
is.
did. It already is. And
I know.
one of the most striking thing about it is that when she was talking about trans women, historically, take away trans, this is how men spoke about women in
I
sport.
know.
It's just in 1984, women were allowed to run full marathons.
I know.
1984.
I know. This is why the idiocy of the whole thing is so ridiculous. Which is why I think it's a one long SNL skit, and we should not take it seriously.
Take my attitude
alrighty
seriously.
then.
Just saying.
No.
So there's your second podcast of the week, folks.
Yes, and it's been
Anything
excellently
else?
long. I don't think there's anything.
that's
Again, as always, Sisyphus is a jerk. But Janina,
What did
since
he do? What did he do this time?
Well, Sisyphus is one of your favorite. He puts DMs in public. Just saying.
Oh yeah, I don't like that. But
Yeah,
you know
don't
what
do
I was
that,
thinking?
kids.
Do you know what I had a realization this week about?
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, I am assuming I'm getting older because the tragic, attractive elements that are supposed to be engaging in our sport, I find silly and dumb. I find Dennis Shapovalov rapping tiresome.
That's rap with a WR with a W.
I mean, you know what? And it's I'm happy if other people like it, But I just realized that there's a point in time when I look around and I'm like, you know what? Maybe these people are too young. And
Well,
they're just not that interesting. Do you know what I mean? They're not interesting.
People are loving it, and it's their age. It's the younger people who are loving it, and that's fine if they're loving it. But yeah, you're right. It's maybe not for me.
Why don't what
age of
I mean
40 plus.
I think so. I think I'm just too old now for the things that are being sold to me as compelling or charming or sweet. And I looked at it and I was like, oh dear, if we're gonna go down this road about Tsitsipas and his romance with whomever he chooses on the tour, I was like, can we figure out a way to just get these people to hit a tennis ball and just keep it moving? I suddenly realized that with this generation, less is more for me.
Oh God. Less is more. I would like nothing, because when they put that little bit, it's just like, ooh, I don't mind. But I would say, I mean, like tennis, what I do find is that tennis journalists, quote unquote journalists, I put journalists in quotation, because I think they're just huge fanboys.
Stop it.
I just wish they would do, since they're not really doing investigative journalism, they're not here to address any real topic that's issues that are in tennis. They should be doing nice fluff pieces. You know what I'm saying? And try to engage tennis fans. Look, we sit down and watch a whole tennis match. So that is so you can keep us for a while, okay? You don't need to give us little clickbait 2-second hits, okay? You can keep us for like a 10-paragraph piece, right? We will read it because we watch a tennis match. Is that get some real adult conversation going. Meet these players and have a conversation with them. Not go like, oh my God, Dennis, so you're rapping, so you're going to put out an album next week? The fuck is that? What is that bullshit? I'm not interested in that. That is not interesting. That doesn't move anything. That doesn't really tell me anything about Dennis. It just tells me he's corny. Which I didn't even
but you know what? It moved the needle for him on the social media space, and I think that's what it just reveals. It's just like, I think it's going to be super interesting to try to engage with this generation of tennis player with the things that people find interesting. And it just realized that
But there's no quality, dude. Like, I feel like I don't know.
I don't know if it's not quality. Some people find it engaging. I just realized that I did, and I just looked at it and thought to myself, ooh. I hope this generation just start becoming, I hope they just start hitting the ball and really performing well, because anything else they're doing doesn't work for me. So
I mean,
that's what I think. I think Janina said it. It's our age.
Well, no, I mean, like I will not be the expert for hip hop and rapping and whatever. But I'm just simply saying. I mean, I could find a bum who could freestyle better than that. I mean, like, no, I'm just simply saying that. No, I'm simply saying there are a lot of people.
He's a blonde, tussle-headed kid rapping.
No. Even on an amateur level, I will not accept that garbage. That is rubbish.
Cut it out.
Rubbish. It's rubbish. No. People can, if you can come with this shit, you gotta do better. Even TFO was just like, bro.
Realz is like, stop it. It's painful, but it's okay. I mean, you know what? This is what we need to keep it interesting, I guess.
Anything we need to cover that we didn't cover?
Nope. Miami's coming up.
No,
yeah, it should be fun. It should be fun.
We have Miami Sizzle. Would Miami Sizzle be this Sunday or next Sunday?
Next Sunday.
Okay. So I'm sorry, folks. This is a double episode in one. Just saying.
I don't think it is this Sunday. If it is, good luck.
Because that means Audrey will be traveling and she won't be around. She's gonna be in Acapulco next week. Hawaii.
Or Antarctica.
I'm going to be someplace. I'm going to be someplace delightful. This wonderful city called Philadelphia.
Oh, brotherly love.
Hamilton round 2.
Yes. So it's been lovely chatting with you
actually.
all.
It isn't round 2, it's round 3.
It's been lovely chatting with you.
Yes.
You guys have ended my afternoon early. It is now pouring rain outside.
Oh, that's what I was hearing. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, it's nice.
And I just saw someone in California said it's hailing and snowing in California. I'm just like,
oh my God.
Listen, the weather in California basically lets us know that the end is near, if my grandma was to be believed.
They need to come quickly. They need to come quickly.
They need to come quickly before Martina writes part 3. So
Dennis
shit.
Shapovalov has a platinum album deal.
he will though, because you know what? Did you guys? You know the one thing we didn't share? The
What?
fact that Jeannie's date is going to become a movie. Was that real, or did I imagine
No,
that?
I'm pretty sure that's real. We're not talking about
Wow, that's awesome. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get Dennis a record deal. It's coming, guys. It's coming.
it. All right.
Coming.
Well, whatever.
Non-ironically, it's coming.
I'm so happy y'all can't see my face. You know, in fact, you know that picture that I have on YouTube? Whenever I call, there is a little boy. That is my face.
Yeah, I believe
That
that.
is me. It is
Yes,
me.
I do.
I'm telling you. I'm just
You
looking
know
at all
what
of you
though?
suspiciously like,
But you know what? Can I tell you though, Realz fans, we're just shady and tired as fuck. I'm sure this is adorable in some planet somewhere. I think the ATP has figured out something that we just haven't figured out yet. So that's
you know what?
That's what I'm gonna give them.
I am gonna need scientific data on that one.
You want science for everything, then, anyway.
That's your feeling. That's just your feeling, Andre. I refuse to believe that. I will not live in this world.
Okay. Well, it's been
and
joy.
I know my fans will back me up. We do not. We feel Dennis is WRA.
Cut it out.
He's rapping. That's not rapping.
I think it's cute. I
But
mean,
anyway, folks.
it's harmless. Nobody's gonna get robbed or killed. Anyway, because that's what people associate with rap, right? So, anyway.
All right. On that note, ciao.
All right.
Ciao, folks.
fun.
So, been fun. So don't forget to comment below and let us know how you feel. And people, please don't tweet me and say you want podcasts with an S.
You got it. You got two this week.
You got it right now. And everyone is good sound because, you know, Janina, they were cheating on you.
I don't care. I don't care.
And we're all good. So happy you enjoyed. This is a good, long, juicy episode.
Bye.
Good day. Goodbye. And don't forget to charge your phone because you will be getting messages. All right. All righty then.
I'm like Rafa. I don't know what you're talking about. Noling it out over here. I'm like Nole. I don't get your message because your WhatsApp group.
Nole say his phone don't give international text.
Oh my god.
His WhatsApp is got international block on it.
Nole too cheap to pay for international WhatsApp.
Would you cut it out?
Although that's not even true because it's data. It's all data. You know what though? The real tea is that Nole is not part of the Labor Cup Part 1 WhatsApp. So he
that's it.
Oh my god! End the podcast.
All righty then. No, we're not in the group, right? We're not in that group.
Oh, bless.
Yeah. That ain't right. Maybe he's not in part of the Edinburgh Award group. Is that what it is?
No, they still haven't figured out how to get him one. I think he's gonna get it this year, though.
Like what for? Play with Fonini? I mean,
leadership.
Can we talk about that, please? Before we go? I just want to say, you're trying to endear yourself to me as a leader. You can't be fucking with Fonini.
It was funny.
You're a match made in heaven. What are you talking about?
You know, I thought it was hilarious because when I was watching it, I was like, "Oh my god, did they make a bet about who could be the worst asshole on court?" Because I think they were competing. I think they literally had a silent bet going. It was hilarious to me. I mean, it was. It just was funny because seeing them together made me realize how similar they were.
Exactly. Exactly. I was just like, this just told me a lot more than you really thought it did, you know? So, like, ugh.
I thought it was fine.
Anyway. But anyway, this is goodbye for real now, people. It's goodbye for reals. Good night.
Night.